I'm a pastor and a theologian, and took a little break there for a little while, just to kind of recognize my need to replenish myself. Some of you can probably understand why. Um, so we're still kind of waltzing through the gifts of the Spirit. It is found in the book of Galatians, chapter 2. I'm sorry, chapter 5, verse 22. Now, what we're talking about now, we've gone through a joy. Um, we have done patience. We've done love. Um, we've done kindness. We've done goodness. And tonight we're going to be talking about faithfulness. Faithfulness. So that may seem like a very kind of obvious subject in the realm of the spirit. But it's a rather interesting word that I think Paul does not want to assume we know anything about. And faithfulness has everything in Paul's world, in the spiritual world, with fidelity. Now, when we sometimes hear the word fidelity, we think of a mutual fund called Fidelity. And one wonders exactly what they do with their faithfulness in that business. But I'm sure there's some people who feel very strongly about it. But my understanding is that it's way more than just having to do with money, and fidelity has to do with the quality of our faithful attitude towards God. Okay, the quality of our faithfulness and the practices that we put in place to honor our spouses, right? Honor our families, honor our communities, honor our parents, honor our children, honor our money, yes, too. It's also about how we live out our sense of morality and our sense of values in the world in which we live. So we have to be faithful as well to our neighbors, um, those we live with, uh, all kinds of neighbors, people who look like us, people who don't look like us, people who come from different racial backgrounds, people who we don't necessarily have a lot in common with in terms of our culture, in terms of our backgrounds. We are all neighbors. We are all involved with the faithfulness of being in fidelity, in relationship with all kinds of people out there, no matter who they are. Everybody is a divine creation, right? So we have this spiritual mandate to have fidelity towards them, to have faithfulness towards everyone, men, women, white, black, gay, straight. I mean, you name it. I mean, Jesus didn't put anybody down in his life, and accepted everyone. And I think we have to look at the Christ figure and how he lived his life as a measure of how we live ours. That's kind of what it means to be faithful. Okay, so I invite you to think of faithfulness in a broader context. So, but it also has something to do with our sense of loyalty. Okay, have we the confidence to be faithful in our relationship with God, in what we hope for and the assurance that we hope for, but maybe are not always able to see. Okay. So think about that for a minute. We have a sense of faithfulness. We have a sense of loyalty to God in the assurance that God is going to be in our lives and do things with us, and sometimes do things that we're not always prepared for, to help us see things from angles that we haven't always been able to see, that we can't necessarily see, right? Look what's happening to our world in the last 3 months. We're suffering with a pandemic, and it is not stopping. It has spilled over and ignited racial unrest, which frankly has been going on for 400 years. There has been disparity and racial prejudice and divide going on for centuries in the United States and in Europe and all over the world. I mean, so this is not a new subject, and it's one that needs to be addressed. So we have to be loyal, really, to God for helping us to be able to see things more clearly than perhaps we've ever really given ourselves the ability to see before. So a sense of loyalty to a faith in God that is looking at things and guiding us in directions and in places of awareness and transparency that perhaps we just haven't been able to quite understand or even articulate in many ways, shapes, and forms. So our sense of loyalty, our sense of what God is doing for us, perhaps that we can't necessarily do for ourselves. Okay. So I invite you to think about that. What is God doing for us that we have not necessarily and maybe will never necessarily be able to do for ourselves? That's a kind of faithfulness that suggests that we need to be loyal to the outcome of God being in our lives, doing things in our lives that are good for us that we necessarily can't see. And then the third concept is, there's being faithful to God, right? It's one thing to believe in God and a God's self, whether you it doesn't really matter what tradition you believe in, whether you believe in a Godhead or not. But then there's a whole nother understanding of being faithful to God and an understanding that maybe we don't always understand. Okay, let me say that again. We can have a belief in God, but it's quite another thing to be faithful to God. It's kind of like saying, well, I'm going to believe in that picture up there, but I'm not going to be faithful to the action. Okay. So what faithfulness that Paul is talking about in his letter to the Galatians is follow through with your actions. Actually go beyond your belief and recognize that things are happening in your life for a reason, and that you have to be faithful and loyal to that commitment and that understanding of God being in your life, even if you don't understand it. And that's the trick, isn't it? That's what faith is all about, stepping out in faith, hoping and praying that the unknown is going to reward you with some kind of outcome that is both beautiful and divine and unexpected and perfect. Perfect. So faithfulness, right? That's I think that's the sixth, no, maybe the seventh fruit of the Spirit. And we're going to go through another one tomorrow or sometime this week. I've sort of been breaking these things up a little bit more so I can have some time to prepare better and not just shoot from the hip. Hope you all understand. Okay, so let's center ourselves with a little devotional time. Okay, and what I want you to do is picture the sky. Picture a beautiful blue, wonderfully clear sky. And all the clouds, the cumulus clouds that are just kind of flowing with the breeze. And imagine yourself being one of those clouds, drifting away from pain, drifting away from hurt, drifting away from confusion, drifting away from anger, drifting away from adversity, drifting away from resentment and bitterness. And feel the lightness of that cumulus stratus. And know that underneath that cloud are the everlasting arms of a God in your life, holding you up, allowing you to be buoyant, allowing you to be comforted, allowing you to be surrounded by the weight and the steady hands and guidance of His love. Feel that. And I know there's fear out there. Reclaiming the spirit as I've created it in these last many months has been all about dissolving the fear. And as soon as we deal with one set of fears, another one seems to drift in, and we have to think about that one too. So in a sense, we're in some cultural overload right now. But, God is my witness, and in my faithful attitude, perhaps necessary. Necessary for us to look at ourselves, necessary for us to look at the splinters in our own eyes, and not necessarily in the metaphor there is actually we tend to look at the logs in everybody else's eyes, but we don't necessarily see the splinters in our own. So, we have this chance as a culture to recognize our own bigotry and our own violence and our own sense of privilege and entitlement, and to feel, therefore, and be faithful that God is asking us to feel for the lives of others that maybe do not have the privileges that some do. And it's very important for us to be humble, and very important for us to walk in somebody else's shoes that may not know the things that perhaps we do. This is about being human. It's about being open. It's about being honest. And it's at the very least, it's about being aware of how other people have been hurt and maimed and wounded and violated because of their gender, because of their color, or because of their race. And now, on top of all that, we're still dealing with a virus that knows no boundaries and will hurt many people, if not kill them. So let's be prayerful. Let's be in this meditation. Find the moment to just relax. God is here. We are that cloud. We are drifting. We're supported. And we're held. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. And let's just end with a little prayer. God of strength, God of joy, God of love, God of absolute awareness and creativity, help us to be a people of faith, where we live out our faithfulness in the loyalty that we give, the fidelity that we offer, and our just actions in your name. Not just sound bites, not just, cute little prayers, but real faithfulness and an action beyond our words, in our actions actually, and how we care for one another. May we be resolute, may we be strong, and may we be encouraging of all those people going through strife and difficulty this day. We ask these things in your name. Amen.